Hello. Today I wanted to talk about two books that I found in the mail at the exact same time from different places that turned out to be very, very similar in an unusual and very interesting way. The first book is A Case of Conscience by James Blish. The second is The Sparrow by Doria Russell. By a complete coincidence, even though I learned about them from completely different sources at completely different times, and I ordered them on different days, and they happened to arrive on my doorstep at pretty much the same time. They are both about Jesuits exploring ethical issues related to other planets. And they adopt vastly different perspectives and vastly different methods for exploring the problems involved. So I guess we'll go over both of them and then do a small comparison. I don't expect this to take too long. Case of Conscience first. James Blish. Now this is old science fiction. When was this published? I think it was the 80s. Give me a second. Oh no, I'm wrong. 1959. Faber and Faber. Thank you. 1959. Science fiction, so it's very classic. It's very old-fashioned. And A Case of Conscience is a very clinical book. The characters largely don't matter except for the protagonist, who is a Jesuit priest named Ruiz Sanchez. And what Ruiz Sanchez is doing is going to another planet, Lithia, to investigate whether it can be used for the benefit of man. Now, Lithia is populated by a race of strange lizard type or lizard sort of people who, by a strange coincidence, happen to live in the exact same way as God describes humans in the Garden of Eden. So Ruiz Sanchez sort of investigates the place and then realizes, well, hold on, this is pretty much the Garden of Eden, isn't it? And he recommends to the rest of the team of scientists who come with him that they lock the planet down and they never touch it again, because it's an illusion of the demiurge, of the sort of the devil pretending to be God. And it's a trap. And that means that if he acknowledges the problem of the book is that if Ruiz Sanchez accepts that the place is a trap, right? If it's obvious, if it's a paradise that's pretending to be a paradise and it's actually a trick by Satan, if he accepts that, then he becomes a heretic because he left the place without performing an exorcism, and that means that he's going to be damned. He'll go to hell for eternity, and he'll be cast out of the Jesuit order. So the book is sort of about that problem. And as well as that, he takes an egg back with him of one of the lizard people, and it hatches on Earth, and it starts causing massive social upheaval in this sort of strange future society of... It's a sort of anthem-ish. Well, no, it's not. Actually, I misspeak. It's not like that at all. It's very hyper-capitalistic and very show-offy society, and this lizard thing that has no home of its own starts inspecting the society from the outside and causing loads of problems. So that's what that's about. It's very clinical. None of the characters really have character except for the lizard baby, whose name is very long and hard to pronounce, and the priest Ruiz Sanchez, from Peru, by the way. Now, I mentioned that he's from Peru because the second priest from our second book, The Sparrow, is also a Spanish Jesuit, and his name is Emilio Sandoz. So Sanchez, Sandoz, something's going on there, isn't it? But this book is actually rather different, even though the plot may appear to be very, very similar. So in The Sparrow, the Jesuit priest is the last survivor of an expedition to another planet called Rakhat. And the book focuses on the lead up to that mission and the fallout, the effects on Emilio Sanchez, sorry, I say Sanchez, Sandoz personally, because everyone who would have come back with him is dead. And this book is not concerned with sort of picking apart the specifics of a certain heresy. It's not as theoretical and it's not as sort of obviously focused on themes. It's much more character driven in the sense that the characters actually have character that you care about, and there are more of them, and they have arcs, and it's more like a conventional novel than it is the other one, which is of course science fiction. So it's more concerned with exploring the idea than it is the characters. So the characters themselves are just sort of set pieces, or part of the set piece, that are used to explain the idea. In The Sparrow, the characters I think are quite good. They're quite interesting. They seem quite real. Although this isn't meant to be the place for a proper analysis, I'm just sort of putting that out there to say this is much more an emotional book, where you can think of A Case of Conscience as a theoretical book, and you can think of The Sparrow as the emotional take on the same idea of a Jesuit going to another planet, encountering an accidental heresy, and then having to deal with it. It's also interesting how the different planets are treated, because Sandoz's problems in The Sparrow are actually caused by his lack of understanding of a heavily stratified class society on the different planet, while Ruiz Sanchez's problems in A Case of Conscience are caused by his total lack of understanding of a very peaceful place with absolutely no social problems. In that way, they mirror each other quite well, and I think it's very interesting. There was something else that I had to say about these two books, something else that was kind of fascinating. I might think of it, I might not. I might have to put it in some bit of paratext for this video, but it doesn't matter too much if I haven't remembered it. This was just meant to be a sort of comparison, a quick check out both of these books at once. The male and the female take on the same idea. And they're both on their own, they're both worth the time, but if you can get them together, as I did by complete coincidence, it's really quite fascinating. Anyway, check them out. Case of Conscience, James Blish. The Sparrow, Mary Doria Russell. Good stuff.